Hello, my name is Don Krim. I am President and Development Director of Jóvenes Adelante here in San Miguel de Allende. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. I moved to San Miguel in 2014 and I started working with Jóvenes Adelante in 2017. I've always been attracted to working with high school and university age youth. And it was very clear after reading something about the program of Jóvenes Adelante that the combination of financial support and mentoring and the additional support that Jóvenes Adelante provides, I already knew from my own experience is a secret of success. My own background is in music and theater as a performer and also as a teacher of movement and posture in university settings as well as in private settings. Jóvenes Adelante was founded in 2001. The original inspiration for it was a university student who needed some extra funding, mostly to buy a pair of shoes. And a group of Americans that were living here at the time and wanted to support what was their adoptive home. They wanted to support the local community. And that student was so successful that then they went on to found Jóvenes Adelante and support more university students. It's a really interesting question to think about what the impact is of supporting a student in university. On the one hand, there's the individual impact for an individual sponsor. And in most cases, that's a combination of giving back, of supporting the local community, of simply feeling good. I recently spoke with a sponsor who decided that he was going to sponsor a student because he's 70 years old and he remembers what it was like before, and to celebrate his birthday, he wanted to feel really good, and that was how he was going to reward himself and make himself feel good. On a larger scale, the impact of supporting students in Mexico especially, who are university students, is enormous because Mexico has an extremely young demographic, especially in the context of North America. Most of the working age population is between the ages of 15 and 64, but only 45% of that population even has a high school degree, never mind a university degree. It is a generation that is the future of Mexico. And we are in the Bajío region. San Miguel is not alone. We're in the Bajío in one of the major economic investment centers of Mexico, right smack in the center. And if we don't have an educated population, if Mexico doesn't have an educated population of high school and university students, it cannot take advantage of the demographic advantage that it has. Again, these students, this generation, from my point of view, is really the future of Mexico. And that future is right there now. And it's crucial to support them. I am often asked what the selection process for Jóvenes Adelante is. It's very complicated, actually. It takes several months. We're right in the middle of our 2026 selection process at this moment. We originally had this year, for example, 311 new applicants. Some of them are coming directly from high school, and some of them are already in university, because we will support students whether they have 2 years remaining, 3 years remaining, 5 years remaining, or even for medical students if they have up to 7 years remaining. And in addition, we have a selection process that's separate for our own graduates who are applying for either advanced medical specializations or for master's degrees. For each group, obviously, principally for those students coming out of prepa and already in university who are competing for approximately 50 positions, 50 spots in Jóvenes Adelante, each one has to send in an application. They have to have a minimum qualification of 9.0 as a rule in their grades. That's out of 10, 9 out of 10, 90%, let's say. Of course, there are always exceptions, but we're looking for students, just like it says behind me on the wall, who have high impact potential, but also have the maturity and the presence of mind now to know how to chart their own course for their future. That's what's really, really critical to us, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that little chispa, that little spark of fabulous students, and we take them through a paper process. They do a video to present themselves and their story. They then have an interview individually with our qualified staff or volunteers. I myself have been an interviewer for many, many years. After the individual interview, there's a family interview. And at the end of that, there's a selection process team that looks at all the students together and chooses what we hope would be approximately 50 students, plus maybe 5 or 6 backup students, because not all students who apply directly out of high school are successful on their first try to get into university. So we need to have some backup. If those students do get into Jóvenes Adelante and they do not get into university, we will hold their place, but we're also looking for our own purposes to follow through and continue to have our 50 students, more or less. That's an approximation. We have approximately 145 to 150 students at any given time in the program. It's an interesting question when we look at Mexico as a whole and we look at the impact of the university population on all of Mexico. And I talked about that a little bit earlier and how important this generation of students is. On a local level, most of our students are first generation students. Their parents have not gone to school. Most of their parents, at best, have finished secundaria or middle school. They haven't even finished high school. So the ripple effect of one student in a small community, and we serve about 60 different communities around, in and around San Miguel, as well as others in Dolores Hidalgo and Comonfort. If those students are the first in their family or in their community to go to university, that becomes an inspiration for the entire community and for other siblings that the students may have, and for in many ways, not just the immediate family, but other neighbors, extended family. It's a ripple effect. It's like dropping a rock or a pebble in a pond, and that ripples out. And that effect is huge. Our students become models and inspirations within their families and communities. One of the things that's most satisfying being part of Jóvenes Adelante is because we are supporting students over a period of time for the entire course of their university career, we see their growth, we see their maturity. Sometimes a kid comes in really shy and really timid and gradually gains the confidence to speak in public, to represent themselves in front of their other students and their faculty and professionals when they go out into the workforce, but they also become representatives of Jóvenes Adelante. Many of our students who come in, when they start, because we support so many aspects of the students' development, through our mentor program, through our English program, through our psychological support program, on top of the financial support that extends beyond just the scholarship, but we also provide opportunities for the students to travel. All of those experiences together and the support within the family of Jóvenes Adelante simply changes who those students are from when they begin to start. It can be quite astonishing to see that level of maturation and development from a young adult into a confident, much more mature, still young adult at the end of the day for most of our students, but they really are different people. And that's one of the most rewarding things of being a mentor, of being a tutor, or being on the staff or as a board member of Jóvenes Adelante. At Jóvenes Adelante, we have different types of support. Financial support is provided by a financial sponsor. Those sponsors get information about each one of their students when the student is selected. They get a profile that describes who their student is, something about them. And after one semester or 1 or 2 quarters, the sponsors have an opportunity to meet their students. They can meet them on a personal level, individually, and spend an hour and a half, 2 hours, and get to know them. Or they can always come to some of our events where all of our students are together, and their they can meet their sponsees in that sense. Mentors are different. Mentors are a constant monthly support system for our students. That's the fundamental relationship. The reason we have those two things separated is we don't want the leverage of money to impact the relationship and psychological support for the student. When our students are writing quarterly reports, these reports get sent to the sponsors, so the students know that they have a sponsor. They don't necessarily know who it is, and the students know that when they're writing their report, someone who cares about them, someone who doesn't even know them, and someone that they don't know is out there supporting them financially. It's one of the things that our students mention often when they write thank you letters to their sponsors, is that it's so surprising to them that someone who doesn't know who they are, that's not in their family, is willing to provide all that funding for their education. I'm often asked if I can give an example of the impact on one student and the impact of Jóvenes Adelante. It's difficult. We have 345 graduates. Each one of them is an individual success story. One that stands out for me because the student was so unusual in many ways. About 4 or 5 years ago, I met a student who is from a rural community. His mother is a housekeeper, his father is a welder, and this student from a tiny community of 300 or 400 people wanted to be a criminologist and study criminalismo y criminología. And he was so animated and so excited about this profession and the difference he could make on the entire country. He just graduated. He's doing a master's now. He lives in Guanajuato. And he's just one of these extraordinary students. And you wonder, I remember thinking when I first met him, what his parents must have thought of this young man coming from this rural community. And that's what he wanted to do. And obviously, that profession is something that, by definition, can have such an enormous impact on Mexico and on the community. It's still early days for him. He's doing a master's, but he's already been working in Guanajuato. He's already working with the community. He's working for the Fiscalía. He's an extraordinary story. So, as we've mentioned, Jóvenes Adelante has 345 graduates. We also have a graduate network that consists of over 250 of our graduates. When we're talking about a graduate network, we're talking about students who are still in contact with Jóvenes Adelante, and many of them want to come back and support the community and support other students who are in process and participate in and help at events. Many of those students are coming back now as mentors. Others are coming back as interviewers. I was just in an interviewer training for the 2026 selection process, and this criminology student that I was just talking about, he is going to be one of our interviewers for the new class of 2026. That's on top of all the work that he has already done when he comes and he talks to students about his profession, when he shows up at events and talks about how important Jóvenes Adelante is. Those kinds of stories and those kinds of active participants who want to give back to other students, that's the full circle for Jóvenes Adelante. And they are usually accompanied by amazing success stories, travel stories, the success of getting a titulación and a cédula, the professional credentialing. Those are the kind of stories that we want to see in our newsletter and also in one of our new features, a digital magazine that I began and publish and edit principally. It's on a quarterly basis. It's called JA Scholar. It's a platform that lets me go deeper, that lets me use much more visual, three-dimensional kind of storytelling than we can do in only a monthly or bi-monthly newsletter. And these kinds of stories, or other stories, for example, of a new student who's just come in and what was their experience like. One of the stories that I'm working on for the next issue that will be coming out in April is a student who is at the University Nacional Autónoma de Mexico, UNAM, but he's doing, which is, of course, it's one of the most prestigious universities in all of Latin America and one of the top two universities in Mexico. And at the same time, he's doing another major at La Universidad Autónoma Metropolitana, also in Mexico City. To do two majors at the top universities, one in sociology and another in political science, that's a story in itself because it's so rare, it's so extraordinary. We have other students who are doing master's programs in Germany. All of these kinds of things are inspirations to our current students, more inspiration to our current graduates, and of course to our funding sources and to our mentors who get to learn more about the students that they don't know. And that's really the purpose of Jóvenes Adelante, and to keep growing that graduate network, to keep growing that graduate network. When I formed Jóvenes Adelante and I was looking at the best way to tell those stories, I was looking at Alumni Association publications in the United States to see how they structured those to bring in more graduates and to tell their stories. And that's what we've done. The message that I would give to any potential sponsor or donor, you don't have to be a sponsor, but to financially support this community and these students, is to remember that their future is in your hands. We can't do this alone. We're a nonprofit. No one can do this alone. The students can't do it alone. We can't do it alone. You are part of we once you join us, whether that's as financial supporter or as potentially a mentor or a tutor or other type of volunteer. Financially supporting a student is not necessarily the most emotionally engaged process with respect to a relationship with a student. But at the end of the day, it's the piece that makes all the difference. The students are coming to Jóvenes Adelante initially for financial support, and they need that support. And trust me, having been a financial sponsor, as a donor myself, and as a mentor of 6 students, I know that at the end of the day, the satisfaction is equal, whether you're a financial donor or if that's not possible for you to be a mentor. And it's also possible to be a mentor of one student and a financial sponsor of another. But trust me, seeing how those lives are changed and the impact across the country and the community, that's not something you can achieve in any other way without getting actively involved. There are so many ways to support Jóvenes Adelante and our students. As I said, we're currently engaged in a selection process that consists of initially 311 students, and we'll be supporting at the end 60 students. Each one of those students needs a financial supporter. That's called a sponsor. We never support a student unless we have that financial support, and there's really nothing more rewarding if it's within one's life possibilities to support a student financially. There's nothing quite like it, because you really know that that's why a student comes into Jóvenes Adelante. That is why we are here, and we do everything in addition to the money to make the student a success and to make their university journey. We do everything we can to make their university journey successful. That includes mentoring. You can also volunteer to be a mentor. But at the end of the day, the students are coming for the money, and that's why we're here, to provide that to them as a nonprofit. We can provide tax receipts to donors who are Mexican through our Donataria Autorizada, through our 501c3 in the United States, and through our partner Amistad Canada in Canada. So we are trinational in that sense. All sponsors and other donors can receive tax receipts. If you want to know more about how to be involved with Jóvenes Adelante, either as a sponsor, as a mentor, an English tutor, you can come to Jóvenes Adelante jovenesadelante.org. You can also find us on social media at Jóvenes Adelante AC. So Jóvenes Adelante AC in English in all platforms of social media. Again, our website is jovenesadelante.org and our email address is info@jovenesadelante.org, jovenesadelante.org. Thank you so much for having me.